Hey, welcome to another episode of Becoming a TechnoWizard. All right, so fun. I'm going to do a mock interview with myself. So really just practicing answering some questions. Going to see how it goes. Watch the recording back and give myself some feedback. I don't know, but it's really just practicing answering questions. I can answer questions all day in my head, and I can write answers down. But I find that when I write answers down to when I write down answers to the questions, when it comes time to talk about them, I tend to try to remember what I wrote down instead of just talking, right? And so that makes me more anxious and more nervous rather than if I simply, practice talking. It helps me to, number one, make sure that I am speaking correctly when I'm, actually doing it, when I'm actually in an interview. And number two, making sure that I'm making sense and I'm on time and everything like that, and I'm not struggling to answer these questions. So yeah, I'm going to do that now. It's been a long time since I've done an interview, probably over 3 years. And even then, it wasn't like a serious interview. Like I haven't done a lot of interviews in my life. All right, most jobs I had gotten from I only interviewed maybe went to like two to three different places. I interviewed like once or twice, and I got a job. But I know I'm getting to a higher level right now. I'm going to be, going for these jobs that are way different than anything I've ever done before. But I feel confident in being able to get them. It's just practice, making sure I'm comfortable when it comes down to these interviews and stuff like that. So here we go. I'm not going to share my screen because I'm just reading questions. You guys get to look at me. uh, Let me do full screen so I can see myself. It's not showing. Okay. It usually gives a mini screen, but it's not doing that now. So I can't see myself. So if I look dumb, oh well. Okay, whatever. So the first question, tell me about yourself. Constant question. All right. So I, I always feel like I'm not probably gonna say this, but I always want to answer this question like, oh, this is like the hardest question to answer because I never know exactly what you want to hear. I want to ask the interviewer, hey, okay, I definitely understand why you want to ask this question, but when you ask that question, what do you want to hear? What about myself would you like to hear? Would you like to get into my professional aspect? How long do you want me to answer this question for? You know, um, uh, what 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 level of personal stuff do you want me to answer for? It's really difficult for me, like when I'm thinking about this, because especially now as a user, experience person, like I'm trying to think of, okay, what does this person want? Like, what pain points am I solving answering this question, and stuff like that. And I understand, like people want to gosh, freaking eyelashes. I understand that people expect you to give like an elevator pitch, right? And I practice that a ton of times, so I can probably give that. But my issue with that is an elevator pitch. Not only is it like prepared, but it's to me it doesn't really, like, sometimes you as an interviewer want to know a certain thing about the person, but you sometimes don't want to ask, or you don't really know if you can ask or something like that, and it's just whatever. I'm just overthinking anyways. But anyways, okay. Real interview. Okay. So tell me about yourself. Yeah. So I guess a good place to start is and since third grade, right? Since third grade, I was obsessed with inventing hover cars. Like, I really wanted to invent flying vehicles for the future. But the problem with that was that it was extremely difficult. I researched engineering, aeronautics, biomimetics, all that stuff. Um, but during the entire time, I realized that that wasn't really my skill set. All right. So afterwards, I started to look, find where my skills really lie. I went to sales. I went into engineering. No, I'm sorry, not engineering. I went to cybersecurity. I interned at a Fortune 500 company. I worked for free at an HR technology data science company as project manager, analysis, all that stuff. And I even tried to teach myself coding. but none of that was really for me. However, during those positions, I learned that my skills fly in business strategy, and establishing empathy with customers, and storytelling, and communicating with cross-functional teams. And so that is how I got a job as a operating manager at a virtual reality arcade. Um, People don't realize that we do have arcades for virtual reality, and it's pretty exciting, it's pretty interesting. um, However, it wasn't until a year ago when I found out about UX design and product design, that I realized that actually all my skills and interests coincide in this one career path of user experience. And that is like something that's super exciting for me, because I feel like my purpose has always been, or is, to create help create emergent technology that makes a positive impact in the world, and that empowers people to live fulfilled lives. And so that that's really what I'm all about. Like, I love futurism, and reading science fiction and fantasy that's all about, the establishing societies that encourage people, that inspire people, and that motivate people. So yeah, that's I can go on and on about all that stuff, but hopefully that gave you a little bit of idea about me. What do you think out of that? Does that feel like you got to know a little bit about me? So yeah, I know that was a very stumbling answer, so I got to clean that up a lot. I wrote an elevator pitch, but again, when I write something, I tend to like try to think about what I wrote, like try to memorize it, try to say that because I wrote something really good. I feel like it was pretty good. Um, but the problem with that is that you don't want to be trying to memorize what you wrote down before. You just want to be organic, be fluid. So I have to figure out how to do that. I got freaking mosquitoes out here, but I have to figure out how to do that. Hopefully that wasn't too long too. I know I was probably on a little longer side for a tell me about yourself question. Mm. But I do like the end there, because I want to get into the habit of making sure I'm making this a conversation, not just an interview. That's usually the best type of interviews, where you draw the interviewer in, ask them, what they think about what they think about. Well, I'm not sure. That's my problem. Like, I want to engage the interviewer, but I've heard that asking them, hey, what you think about my answer, it comes off as like insecure almost, and that's not my intent. My intent is to get them engaged, right? Is to see, what part of my story interests them, so we can go on and have a conversation about that, right? So I got to figure out, what the balance is for that. Maybe talk to my career coach and see if that's possible, if that's, relevant. But hey, okay. So next question. Why do you want to be a UX designer? So yeah, this definitely stems right from my last question, or my last answer, and that I feel like UX design is the perfect crossroads between what I want to do in life, my purpose in life, which is to help people live better lives, right? To create technology that empowers people and that inspires and motivates them. Right now, a lot of times we have a lot of technology that is we there's a habit of technology being designed um, for, or rather, technology being designed to kind of get something out of people, rather than technology being designed around people, around what people want. And so I wanted to go more into that route, right? And I feel like uh, UX design is a perfect crossroads between that, because it's all about human centered design, where you have an idea, and you look at what people actually want. You look at their problems, their pain points, and then uh, you're able to craft some ideas. You're able to come up with some ideas. Use data. Use from all these different research fields, and you craft a solution that actually solves their problem. And you test it multiple times. You iterate on that solution that you thought you had, until you really have something that's delightful, that is magical. That's what I'm all about, like creating magical experiences. Um, so I call myself like a techno wizard. Technology magical, right? That feeling when you reading Harry Potter or seeing Harry Potter and you see him cast a spell and then something amazing happens, right? That's what I want people to have when they're using technology, that something amazing is happening and it's coming from them. Like it's an empowering experience. So that's what, to me, that's what UX design is all about. And that's why I want to be more of a designer. It's all about, inventing that magic. I think that was a good question, a good answer. But again, it's bumbling and stumbling, so I really got to work on answering these questions. This is why I'm doing this. Like I went through these questions in my head, but I know it's a different thing, when it comes to answering it in real life. And I had to be careful of making sure I'm not going too fast, stumbling over my words, as well as making sure that I am not backtracking too much and all over the place. I know I'm much better at writing than talking, mostly because when I'm writing, I don't have to, like, I can think about what I'm saying, right? And even if I take some time to think about how I'm going to craft my answer, when it comes out my mouth, it just starts going all over the place. Hopefully that made sense. I had to go back and see. Next question. How can your previous background add value to this company or role? And for context, I'm using the company Frog Design. It's a design agency, and I'm using their role, the senior junior service designer, design implementation services. So that's my kind of context here. But anyways, okay. So yeah, how can you use your previous background to add value to Frog and the junior service designer role? Okay, so yeah, I have a very generalist background. Um, Again, it comes from trying to learn where I provide the most value. I've worked in Fortune 500 companies as well as really small startup teams in the pre-seed level, where there's less than 10 people, less than 5 people. I've managed teams. I've hired people. I've seen projects go from just the idea level to production. So I have a very good understanding of strategy, of how to think about a problem and how to make it happen, not just in the perspective of technical terms of how to code something or how to design something, but how to communicate with a team, with cross-functional team. So you're communicating with engineering, with marketing, with anybody else involved in the product, and anybody else involved, in order to get people aligned on that goal and to establish, a strategy or a plan to execute. So my experiences allows me to, call on my knowledge. It may be small, but at least I have a little bit of knowledge into each of these different functional areas, and to understand what their goals are, to understand what their concerns are and what their barriers are, so that as a designer, I can say, hey, I understand that you're probably going to be looking for this. So, I'm going to proactively yeah, bring that into my design. I'm going to proactively look at security and privacy, uh, um, you know, security and privacy functions or ideas. I'm going to look at how this design can be implemented by the engineer. I'm going to look at how the sales team or the marketing team will put this out to the consumers. I'm going to look at even the customer service, what problems or what bugs they might come up with, or that we've heard of already from the current product. So yeah, so basically I'm going to bring all these different generalist ideas and my experiences working with different teams into design, so that I can make sure that design is more of a central table stakes, rather than kind of off to the side trying to do our own thing. I hope that's a good answer. I think that's a good answer. All right. So what did you learn in your Flatiron Schools program? All right. So I learned an incredible amount about what design is all about. Prior to this, I didn't think, I thought UX design or design in general was just visual, was just art, right? It's just all about creating good looking stuff, aesthetics and everything like that. That's why I didn't really get too much into it, because though I am creative, I don't necessarily consider myself an artist. But as I was looking into the field, and especially during the program, my instructors, my mentors, everybody else involved really honed in on the not just the building blocks level, but the technology and the science level, the strategy level, right? And that is what really really excites me about this this field, is that from what I learned through the program, design is about taking people's problems and basing the solutions on real data. So you're not guessing. You're not assuming what you think the users would like. You're not trying to shoehorn in some supposed business needs in order to force the consumer to do a certain behavior. You're actually saying, hey, these people have this pain point, and if we solve this pain point, that will be the most profitable thing we can do for both the customer and the business. And that's what I learned about design through the Flatiron program. And of course, all the technical aspects. How do you sketch to create atomic design, and why you should use a design system to keep your team in a in a coherent layout. How to use the layout system so that everything that you're building is aligned with each other, and you're paying attention to a specific hierarchy. How to use plugins and Figma to really bring the tool out to the next level. How to prototype using Principle or Axior, however you want to call it. As well as how to do user research, the importance of ethnographic research and qualitative insights in actually making sense of the data that you're seeing, and understanding what your users or what your customers really want, and why they want it, why they have specific problems. So we went a lot, pretty in depth into a lot of this, especially thanks to my instructor, because he has over 20 years of experience as a designer, in government contracts and Fortune 500s and so on. And he had gave us insights from different guests that came in, and it just really went down to that strategy level. And so I hope to bring a lot of those lessons here at Frog as well. And I think that will bring me a long way. I think that was a good answer too. I'm getting into this. I gotta definitely work on my speech patterns and not stumbling over my words, and thinking more about what I want to say, taking some time to kind of think that through and then say it all. But I think that was a good answer, hopefully. Okay, next question. Walk me through one of your projects that you are most proud of. Explain your process. Okay, awesome. So definitely my favorite project at Flatiron is the most recent thing that we did. It was called, was working with a client. His name is Clayton. He was building a product called Quell, right? It stands for Queer Wellness. So he's working out of Austin, and he is basically one of the most prolific and influential people in the LGBTQIA plus community. So he's building a platform, really a movement, a series of nonprofit programs that is meant to strengthen the LGBTQIA plus community. So in order to do that, he's created so far AustinOutpost.org, as well as QuellAustin.org and CityPride.org. And all of these websites make it easy for people to come in and understand what resources they have available to them, so that they can, live a better life. So he's essentially trying to increase the quality of life for people, right? His problem that he wanted to solve evolved around the fact that Austin is the number 3 or the 3rd largest LGBTQI plus city in America. However, it is hopefully it won't be mosquitoes when I'm doing this interview. However, he did a survey that showed that a large majority, or at least a large number of people in the LGBTQI plus community feel isolated. They feel depressed because they don't have access to the resources that they need. They feel, even in people who work at nonprofit organizations, they feel like their needs are not being addressed, not being they're often being ignored by the organization that they're in. And individual citizens, they will come into the city and not know what resources they have available. um, I can go deep into all the problems that they have, but in order to solve this problem, first we had to understand, more about the problems they were facing. So going in, the project brief specifically was for Clayton. He wanted us to build a portal that connects affirming businesses with community organizers. So affirming businesses, if you don't know, is essentially any business that has some type of affinity program or a diversity program where it's helping people of different minority groups or underrepresented groups to have more resources in that organization. And on the other side was community organizers. These were people who they could work at a Fortune 500 or a nonprofit or whatever, but they often took it upon themselves to create initiatives for the community. Um, so he wanted to connect these two people together and some type of portal, some type of marketplace. He wasn't quite sure what it was, but that was the brief. And so we first started by understanding more about the market. We did exploratory research to understand the different competitors, more so like the different nonprofits and what resources they have for the community. And then we went into understanding the problems that they face. And of course we did our first round of user interviews where we actually talked to a set of users that he set out. He chose 12 participants, and so we interviewed these people to understand what problems that they're facing in their organizations, as well as what behaviors that they have, and a lot of these things. So from those interviews we were able to understand a lot more about their problems, and from that we created a set of problem statements, design principles, to really align our goals with theirs, or really align what we were going to design with their problems. So those two main problem statements was that for business representatives, they needed an easier way to show the impact and the relevance that supporting LGBTQIA plus causes would give to the organization, to their business. So a lot of them, they worked in an affinity group. Sometimes they might be some senior level, but they didn't really have a much of a say in the funding that the company gave to different initiatives. So they needed a better way to say, hey, this initiative would actually make a huge impact on the community in Austin, and that will make that will increase our brand, or that will make our affinity group more effective, or that will make the people here feel more welcome, or there's a number of ways that it can impact the community as well as business. They needed a way to show that impact and that relevance. For community organizers, their main problem statement was that they needed a way to find the resources that they needed to create the initiatives that they wanted to have. So, for instance, if they wanted to pretty much anything that wasn't a party, that wasn't a parade, they were often under resourced, underfunded. So that could be creating support groups for people in the community. That could be resources for people living with HIV, not just trying to find the medical supplies, but people who are living for HIV for a long period of time. Like they didn't just get the the sheesh, this is really annoying, like impossibly annoying. I might have to go inside. I might have to call this short. And I'm taking too long to do this anyway, so let me speed it up. Okay. Sheesh, like I don't know if y'all see this, but I bit like 3 times already. It's really loud inside, so I can't do that. Anyway, okay. So let me finish this. This is really long. All right. What was that? Problem statement. So yeah, those are 2 problem statements, and from there, we set up design principles to make sure that we were paying attention to what they wanted. They wanted something that was authentic, that supplied recognition, and that was resourceful. That really paid attention the entire spectrum, not just any one spectrum in the community. And then from there, we created divergent designs. That was based on an ideation workshop that we did with the client to extract some of his more radical ideas. And from there, we picked the top 3 that we talked about during that workshop, and then we went towards there. So those 3 concepts, each of my group members created each of these concepts, and then we tested these with a comparative usability test, so a scenario-based usability test. So um, we kept it under 45 minutes, interviewed 6 people or 7 people, um, about half and half for each side of those problem statements. And then from there, we were able to understand what they liked about each of these concepts. So we took the best of each concept, and then we brought it together in a convergent design. And then from there, we showed that um, to our client for in another workshop we called Rosebuds and Thorns, where he looked at, what's his favorite parts of the concept, least favorite parts, and things that he thought we could develop more. And from there, we did another usability testing with that converged design, so we were able to understand, what they actually liked about this unified concept. And from there, we were able to see, hey, this part, like for instance, the homepage was really crowded, and that stemmed from because during the first usability test, they often talked about how a lot of times they would go on these different resource platforms, and they wouldn't know what to do. They wouldn't know what's available on the platform or anything like that. So I thought that meant that they went to a homepage that gave him all the options, that gave him all the filters, all the navigation options, that showed all the content all at the same time. Yeah, as you can guess, that wasn't a good thing. People liked the fact that it did have all of that those options. It was actually a favorite, one of the favorite pages, but they admitted that it was very confusing. It took them a long time to understand what was going on in that page. And once they did understand it, they liked it, but we didn't want them to, be struggling to understand the homepage. And so we took that insight along with a number of other insights from that test, and finally created a final design, which greatly simplified the homepage. So instead of having all these options, there was just content in a grid view. So it's very easy to see, what was available in the platform. And from there, they can go into a business profile or a community organizer profile. They can see everything they wanted from that profile, and that would educate their decision and help them to make a request for resources. Another thing that we learned is that we can't simplify the funding process. We tried to do that initially. Specifically, I tried to do that in my concept, but they told us that this was a very complicated process. We couldn't and just make it like, if I had visuals, I'm thinking doing an interview. If I had visuals, I would just show them. But yeah, and anyways, so we couldn't just make it easy so that they can, hey, just request this amount of money, because there was a very long process involved. There's a lot of regulations, a lot of just a lot of complicated processes involved. So we had to simplify that process, but that also helped us to find something interesting in that we can offer in-kind donations, which were things like food, meeting space, supplies. We can have it so that they can request any of those options, and that was a simple process that is not seen anywhere. And so we built that out for our design. They really loved that aspect of it. And another surprising thing that we built up was a dashboard. At first, we thought we were just going to have a simple account page that had your normal settings, but then as we went through a sitemap and tried to create the information architecture, we realized that, hey, if people were looking, we're going through this portal and choosing, what organizations to request resources from or to, we actually needed a place to store this data, to store, what places they were looking at, and any messages they might get, or the history of what causes they were supported, and so on and so forth. And that helped us realize that we needed a really in-depth dashboard. And so I built out a series of dashboards for both the business organizer side as well as the community organizer side, in addition to the Quell admin side, so they can actually, the Quell team, the client's team can see, you know, permissions. They can see levels and all these other things that they had. We also built out a volunteer side because that was a highly requested feature as well. And so in the end, we had a really interesting and really loved product, or at least fundamental design. It was only a mid-fidelity prototype, but they really loved it. Like one of the people that we interviewed called our client and was crying because she loved it so much. And our client repeatedly said, you know, he has to come back to get the UI team to, you know, create a high fidelity version of this. So yeah, they loved it that much. Some of the future recommendations we gave them is to do, you know, actual information architecture on the dashboard, and as well as the filters, because we didn't have time to do that. Another one was to add in fulfillment pages, which showed that when somebody requested a feature or support, that they can actually say, hey, you know, this was fulfilled, you know, this was delivered. So those are some recommendations that we gave, as well as a few others, and we annotated the entire project and passed it off to him so that he can get developers, UI team, and even, you know, data science people because he had this whole data science piece to it as well. So we recommended all that, annotated all that, and we passed it off. And yeah, that was a fun project, and it felt really purpose driven. So I really loved that. Ooh, that was a really long answer. I'm not sure if I should have answers that long, but it was really thorough. So hopefully that, you know, hit everything there. So there's a few other questions, but I am like getting eaten, absolutely eaten out here. So I need to go inside and eat myself. You know, all this blood sucking. But yeah, hope you learned something, and let me know what you thought. Wow, the color is really weird. But yeah, it was fun, and I'm gonna go and hopefully not die from all this mosquito bites. Bye bye.